one thing people don't understand, they underestimate Iran. They think Iran is like Afghanistan. It's not. Iran is an extremely technologically advanced culture. I mean, extremely. Some of the best engineers, some of the best scientists on the planet are Iranians. Brilliant men, brilliant and women, brilliant people.
And the sanction embargoes just push them further even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because now mother is, necessity is the mother of invention. And so Iran is going to come out and start showing us technologies that have been withheld.
We're live. Welcome, Mike Harris. How you doing? Long time no see, no hear.
I'm doing good, Keyvan. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you. Very fine, sir. Mike, we have, I think the last conversation we had was with Ashton Forbes. It was more sort of a out-of-the-box conversation about the MH370 and technologies, suppressed technologies, especially in regards, of course, to the United States. But we're going to come back to that. You don't need any introduction. I've had you on so many times, but for the sake of it, I mean, you're a technological analyst, I would say, geopolitical analyst. You're a financial editor of Veterans Today, and you've been in the nuts and bolts of pretty much everything that's related to technology, advanced technologies, geopolitics. And of course, I would recommend anyone, to read a series of articles that you've written on the Khazarian mafia. Now, in light of the current exponentially accelerating events unfolding, which are truly shocking, sobering, and sad, United States, or I don't know who it is, whatever entity, Trump or whatever, political puppets, trying to find every imaginable excuse or justification to attack Iran with through proxy or vice versa, Israel via proxy. So why don't you just give out your perspective, like how much of it is theater, how much of it is like distraction, what is reality, what is based on facts, and what is going on behind the scenes?
Let me express my heartbreak over President Trump's actions. He was elected to get us out of the war in Ukraine. He advocated for the dissolution of NATO in his first term. One of the reasons I voted for him was to avoid war, to get us out of it, to get to an America First agenda. And these foreign wars do not serve the good of the American people. If we look at the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, the United States squandered $7-8 trillion that put us deeper in debt, that could have been spent on infrastructure and schools and libraries and medical care and improving the lives of American citizens. To get us once again into a foreign war is just heartbreaking. We all knew that when Israel attacked Iran for no reason, what they're saying is a preemptive attack, it was just, many of us look at that and just say bullshit. I'm sorry for the language, but that's the right word. We knew that Iran was going to try to drag the U.S. into this problem that they have. This is not a U.S. problem. We don't have a dog in this fight. This is if Israel has chosen to make it their problem. But it doesn't need to be. It never had been. There's a couple things that we need to look at here. First of all, I don't want to come out with anything that is going to increase anyone's anxiety or fear or distress over what the situation is. By the same token, I don't want to minimize the gravity of the situation that President Trump and Israel have put the people of the world in. This is not just the United States that's in a problem now. This is the people of the entire planet. So this is a major faux pas on Trump's part. Essentially, what he did is we should thank him, and thank him for showing the American people that we really are an Israeli vassal state. That the Jewish lobby in America has been so successful that they have bought him. I remember Marion Adelson giving him $100 million campaign donation, helped get him elected. The same goes on with our congressmen on both sides of the aisle, the senators, Republicans, Democrats, Republicans, both sides. They're all taking Jewish money, with a few exceptions, Thomas Massey of Kentucky being one. This is a serious issue that the American people need to realize that we are not the democratic republic that we represent ourselves as being to our citizens and the rest of the world. That we have become a Jewish oligarchy, that they control us, they control our foreign policy, they control our domestic policy, they control the United States. Everything. I mean, you look at unrelated businesses. You look at BlackRock, Vanguard, etc. They own positions on every publicly traded company in the United States, whether it's NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, etc., and the world. They own, so they can influence the boards, they can influence policies run by Jews. It's just how it is. I mean, we are literally controlled at every facet of our life by Jewish influence, if you will. And this is not the illusion that American people live under. We live under the fact that we have a vote, we can elect a politician who supports our views, but it's not true because in the United States, 96% of the time, the candidate with the most money wins. It's just a hard fact. And you look at a group like AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, that John F. Kennedy wanted to have registered as a foreign lobby group, and he ended up dead a month and a half later, 2 months later. And they never registered. Actually, he required them to register. Lyndon Johnson undid it. But you look at all of the things that have happened in my country, and this began in November of 1963 when John F. Kennedy, the sitting president at the time, was publicly murdered in broad daylight. And we have not had, this country has been on a downward spiral ever since then because the real perpetrators got away with it. They were never caught. They blamed this poor patsy, Lee Harvey Oswald. And Trump said he was going to release the files. Well, they're dribbling out, they're drabbling out, et cetera, et cetera. Now, it brings us to the Epstein files. We still haven't seen those. Why not? If you have the files, give it to the public. Or if you give them to the public, do you lose your ability to blackmail people who you can make do things for you? Is Trump in those files? These are all questions that many of us in the United States have about these things. Is that why Trump has promoted Bibi Netanyahu to be the de facto president of the United States? Not the elected president, but the one who's making foreign policy decisions for the United States. So these are issues that are American issues that are degrading our ability to self-govern. I can't even say it's degrading it. Our ability to self-govern has been destroyed. So let's speak blunt. Let's speak openly here. What Trump did last night was illegal. He stepped outside of the constitutional authority that he has allowed. Number one, Iran did not attack the United States. They didn't do anything. They have not shown any aggressive against the USA. That would result in retaliation like he did. The Congress has not declared a state of, made a declaration of war, which they're required to do. He has not had an extension in the War Powers Act addressing this issue. So Trump has broken the rules. the rules that he has sworn to uphold. So, Mr. Trump is in a great deal of trouble right now domestically. I will be happy to admit I voted for Trump 3 times. I like a lot of the things he represented when he was campaigning. I don't want to see my country overrun with illegal aliens. I want them all gone. His pace of deporting illegal aliens is a trickle, not a mass deportation as he had promised. He promised to keep us out of wars. Party country that has not committed an act of aggression against us is not doing that. He wanted to get us out of NATO. He wanted to do a number of things, and he has had some successes. He has done some things. There was a lot of hoopla and propaganda about his first 100 days and how successful he was, and he did a few things. But like I said, a few things. That's not the agenda he ran on. And this anything that has to do with engaging the United States in another Middle Eastern war at the request of Israel, at Israel's demand, it really demoralizes the people who voted for him. I am one of them. I am heartbroken over his lack of responsibility for this. His lack of things he's trying. What he did by bombing Iran is going to strengthen the U.S. in any manner. Is it going to help us in any manner? What are the benefits to this action? If he's trying to preserve the dollar currency, he just drove every country that was thinking of going to want to get away from the Western banking system now. Because why would anyone invest in any U.S. Treasury bonds? The U.S. is in a position where the budget is so great, they must borrow money to sustain government operations. Why would anybody, any foreign sovereign nation, invest a dime in a U.S. Treasury bond? It just doesn't make sense. Why would China do it? Why would Japan do it? When he's going to go out and start another war? If you look at how Afghanistan and Iraq as the most recent examples, let's say he spends another $4 trillion. We can't afford to be doing these things. It's time for the U.S. to look at tightening the budgets, not expanding this unlimited war spending on projects we lose. I mean, did Iraq benefit the U.S. in any manner? Not at all. Did Afghanistan, the 20 years we spent there, the trillions of dollars we spent on these, did it help the United States? Not at all. And like I said, I'm really disappointed in Trump. I mean, I am truly let down by him. He has really shown that he is a gutless coward. And for him to call the Iranians the bully, I think we know who the bully is here. And he bombs Iran and says, now you better really negotiate. You better take the deal. I'm going to stick up your ass. And again, what are you going to do here, Don? I mean, wake up. Look at the bigger picture. Look at the broader implications of what you're causing. And you don't have anybody to blame it on. It's like Harry Truman said when he was in the Oval Office. He said, the buck stops here. Well, Donnie boy, the buck stops with you. Segment of your voting base. Huge. If you were to run for re-election tomorrow, I doubt you would get the 77, 78 million votes you got November of 24. I doubt it. But I can go on. But this is really a troubling issue. Like I said, we're still in the fog of war right here. No one has a real accurate account of what happened, what the damage was. I don't want to say things that are going to increase anyone's anxiety or distress, but we have to kind of own some facts that we do know. There is nothing compelling Donald Trump except the Israelis and the Jewish lobby to bomb Iran. And it was pointless. And like I said, he has illustrated that we should thank him for showing us where his loyalty really is, where that it is not with Make America Great into war, in another Middle Eastern war, in a country that is stronger and more powerful than either Afghanistan or Iraq was. How is that going to make America great? Does it get rid of a perceived threat that Israel had because they're paranoid, because they know how vicious they are, how they've been? We see the news clips every day of the Israelis murdering women and children, snipers shooting pregnant women, snipers shooting, the United States says it's a Christian country. Why are we supporting, genocidal maniacs just because they pretend they're Israeli or because they're Jewish? People need to realize that these Ashkenazi Jews are not the Hebrews. They didn't convert to Judaism until the 9th century, about 964, 965 sometime, what my research has said. But these are not, they have no claim to that land, none. Not only that, but they've been committing genocide against the Palestinians. And they murdered 700,000 Palestinians then and drove another several million into refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. I've been there. I've seen the camp. They think of Boy Scouts and camping trips and tents and campfires. It's not like that at all. It's really pretty austere, and this is a disappointment. This is an embarrassment for the United States that we have anything to do with Israel at all. But as I said, they have influenced our politics. They dodged the system where JFK put them as wanted AIPAC and other Jewish organizations to register as foreign agents. And JFK was murdered. Lyndon Johnson reversed the executive order. So there you have that. It's just one of those things. The other thing is Iran has signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They have a right to, under the treaty, to a peaceful nuclear program. If they want to generate, nuclear power, that's up to them. It's their right. They're on the treaty. It says they are allowed to do this. The Ayatollah issued a fatwa, and anyone who doesn't know what a fatwa is, it's if you were a Catholic, it'd be like a papal decree, where eat fish on Friday, one of those kind of things where you have to go. You if you're good in your religion, you have to do it. But against the development of nuclear weapons, he never reversed it. There's no reason to think that Iran would do that. Now, the Israelis think here's a common human problem. People who are honest think everybody else is honest. People who lie and cheat think everybody else lies and cheats. The Israelis lie and cheat, so they think everyone else lies and cheat. They're not giving the Ayatollah the respect he's due as an honorable man. That's one thing in my dealings with is imams and Muslim clerics has been that they come across as being honorable men. I've spoken with Taliban, I've met with Hezbollah, I've been interrogated by Hezbollah. I should speak more accurately. I met with the Grand Mufti of Syria. My impression of these guys is that these are honorable men doing what's best. Talking with the guys from the Taliban about it, and they say, well, look, we're just defending our homeland. You and your country, you're the invaders. We want you out of here. And if you leave, we have no issue. That's reasonable. If the same thing happened in my country, I would be the American Taliban. I would be trying to push the invaders out of my country, the occupiers. And so it's understandable that people want their homeland to be respected, and they don't want foreigners occupying it with military intentions. I understand this, but the Israelis just can't seem to leave it alone. They want global dominance. It's what they do. It's what they try to do. But all of these things, cumulatively, it appears that Trump is over his head, that he doesn't understand what's going on, or and this is another real possibility. He's not being given accurate information. He's being given information that forces him to jump to wrong conclusions. There's two types of lies. There's the lie of commission, where if I told you I'm driving a new Ferrari, and I'm not, but if I told you that, I would be committing a lie. That's an overt lie of commission. The other type of lie is a lie of omission, where a married guy calls his wife on Friday night, says, "Honey, I'm going to stop out at the bar and have a couple drinks with the guys. It's Friday. I'll be home a little late." But what he didn't tell her was that he was going down to the Boom Boom Club and he's going to spend $500 in table dances and come home broke. He omitted an essential part of the story that she needed to know before she approved of his stopping off at the bar. So that's what is going on right now. There's lies of omission being committed, where I think of essential facts that Trump needs to know are not being discussed or not being disclosed to him. And I can't blame him for that, but I can, because if that's the case, he needs better personnel. He needs people who have the ability to go in there and give him unbiased, assessments, intelligence assessments across everything. And intelligence just doesn't apply to military or affairs of state. Intelligence applies to everything from domestic policy on up. And if he's not being given accurate information, and I don't believe that he is, it's easy to come to the wrong conclusion. So, but I'm not here to make excuses for Trump. I'm here to kind of chastise him a bit for being so stupid. I mean, he's really proving to the world that, yes, he is as dumb as George W. Bush. And George W. Bush was famous for being the dumbest president. And Trump is sort of coming in at a close second here. It'll depend on what he does next. But, that really is what he did was a very, very stupid thing. And he was duplicitous. He misleads the Iranians. I'm not going to make a decision for 2 weeks. 2 days later, he's dropping bombs on them. How are you supposed to negotiate with someone who gives you a window to formulate your position and reach consensus within your own population as to what you're going to do and how you're going to do it? Because, as Trump is learning, the United States or Iran or Russia or China, any government there's 1,000 competing factions out there, and they all want something a little different. How do you bring those factions to a consensus for the country? And he didn't allow them the time to process this, to get their ducks in a row, so they could come back and say, yes, we can live with this. No, we can't live with that. So these are some mistakes that Trump has made. And like I said, I put this firmly on the Israeli and Jewish lobby that's within the United States. I give them the responsibility for this. This is where it goes. So,
Mike, I need to, thank you so much because you've answered, I think, explained a lot of things which I've already, are in the process of our conversation where I wanted to ask, but you already answered it. Especially thank you for clarifying a little bit the term. Who is a Jew or Jewish? Because I think there used to be a let's say ethical, spiritual ethical Judaism, if you want to call it, like the ancient, Abramovich, whatever.
Well, who are the Hebrews of the Bible that Christians put so much faith in? That this is where Christianity came from. Who were Jesus's people that he came from? Who were they? Well, these Khazar types, these Ashkenazi types, they don't have any Semitic blood in them at all, and that's their first line when you criticize them for catching them at committing one of their crimes, or one of their many crimes. They always say, "Oh, you're being anti-Semitic." No, we don't like Khazarian criminals.
And they are not Semites. They are not Semites.
They are not Semites. Read the John Hopkins study on that one. That really goes out at their 98.9% Semite-free genes. They just don't have any genetics that support their claim to to Palestine. So, and if you look at the Palestinians, they're the real Semites. People say, well, what happened to the Hebrews of the Bibles? Well, many of them converted to Christianity. Many of them converted to Islam, and they're still in the same place they were 2,000 years ago. There's where the Hebrews of the Bible are. They converted to other religions because the other religions made more sense to them. Whereas Judaism was no longer valid. It was not a good framework for them which to live their lives.
Mm-hmm. Now, look, I want to ask you something because it's maybe my perception because I'm already too deep or I'm not on mainstream. So I have the notion or the feeling that people's perception, at least optically, or has changed a little bit. I mean, they do see the difference. I mean, the whole gaslighting. Do you see a difference? Do you see a change in the perception of people regarding Israel, Iran, United States? Do you see a slight shift?
A slight shift. I see a tectonic shift in how Americans in particular perceive the Israelis. Now, there are some evangelical Christian types who follow the Schofield Bible, which was they took a King James Bible and rewrote it to not be negative to Jews in Israel. About 1900, 1910, sometime in that time frame. I don't have the exact date, but they rewrote the Bible and they paid pastors, in order to promote that flavor of Christianity, and that was a very big propaganda effort. But the good news is that by the genocide in Gaza has opened so many eyes that people watch what's going on and they say, wait a minute, if I am a Christian and if this is not what Christians do, this is not what Christians support, this is antithetical to who and what we are. And you watch the Israelis offering genocide tourism where they're sitting on the hillside where while they're slaughtering people down in the valley and they're drinking wine and celebrating this. This is not the Christian way. This is not the Muslim way. This is who is that Air Force colonel who came out and said that Israel is a death cult? It really is a death cult. It truly is. The Chabad Lubavitchers are being some of the worst. And this is a problem. So, how can we, as a people, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Hindu, how do you support a people who openly commits a genocide against a population that cannot escape? They're held prisoner in Gaza, the open air prison, and they have nowhere to go. They've been dispossessed of their land, and they're being systematically destroyed. And they're doing to Gaza what Stalin did to Ukraine during what is called the Holodomor. Starvation is the cheapest way of killing people. And right now, the Israelis are starving the Palestinians in Gaza. And this is a crime against humanity. No one speaks out about it. There's just a number of issues, but let's look at some other things. This is a big dust up here about Iran allegedly getting a nuclear weapon. Okay, that's what the big hoo-ha is about. Okay, well, they had a little bit of a what's the right word? Contention about when North Korea got a nuclear weapon. But North Korea went ahead and developed a nuclear weapon in peace. No one bombed North Korea. No one invaded North Korea. No one attacked them in any way. And the reason behind this is that North Korea has no oil. Iran has oil, a lot of oil. Currently, it's estimated that China is buying between 80 and 90% of the Iranian oil and consuming it. That's one of their major suppliers. So what happens if that source of oil is out of Iranian control and goes under control of the Western banking system through Western companies and Western banks and other things? What happens then? Suddenly, the Western banking system, the City of London, has control over China. Now, people need to understand that Israel was created because of the City of London during the Balfour Agreement. The City of London is the nexus of evil on this planet. That is the center of the Western banking hub. Our Federal Reserve System that prints our money, our currency in the U.S., is owned by the City of London. So you look at this and you say, well, wait a minute. If the City of London controls the Iranian oil, they control China's policy, because China cannot live without an energy source. They can't sustain their economy. They can't sustain their people. They can't sustain agriculture. A number of things. It weakens China dramatically. In the short term, China will turn and buy oil from Russia. But if they're taking that Iranian oil away, they're going to drive prices up. We're all going to pay more. Expect oil to go to $115, $120 a barrel this coming week. If the Straits of Hormuz are closed, expect it to go somewhere between $200 and $300 a barrel. This is going to, excuse me, this is going to undermine Trump's economic program, but I want to come back to that. In the short term, what's going to happen if China has to switch vendors and start buying from Russia versus Iran, it's going to pump a lot of money into Russia. But it's also going to weaken China. So China will not be as strong of an ally as it could be for Russia if NATO in the West decides to take Russia on full time. We'd like to think the operation in Ukraine is winding down, but it doesn't appear that way. It appears that it's just hitting a pause, and that Europe is ramping up to take on Russia directly. You look at the budgeting, you look at the rhetoric, you look at all the tell signals there, and Russia is preparing for a long engagement with. Europe is preparing for a long engagement with Russia, and so that is one sign. So the end game here is to destroy Iran, cripple China, so withholding energy from them. It'll strengthen Russia short term economically, but long term, it's going to result in Russia getting broken up into 4, 5, 6, 10 different regional countries that will never be able to be powerful and stand alone against them. And then you have the City of London dominating the entire planet through economic means. Now, if we go back to Trump's his plan to revitalize the American economy, one of the things he's done really effectively is he brought the cost of energy down. You see at the gas pump. Gas is $2.35 a gallon, whereas under Obama it was over $5 a gallon. It's come down steadily since he's been in office. Now, if the Straits of Hormuz close and gasoline prices go up to $5, $6, $8 a gallon, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, or more, that's going to fuel inflation. So Trump has been lobbying for a rate cut from the Federal Reserve. It's going to result in rate hikes. It's going to result in tighter credit, not looser credit. It's going to exacerbate the American budget problem. More of our money is going to be required to pay off the existing debt because the interest rates went up. It's going to discourage other countries from buying U.S. Treasury bonds because the U.S. is now unstable. They're too far in debt. It's like whenever a borrower has too much credit card debt, he can't get any more credit. They cut him off, and that is what the United States is looking at. That is going to destroy Trump's economic revitalization plan for the country. Another sign of very, very short-sighted thinking and or bad advice that he's getting from people. It's really tragic how he is being allowed to malmanage this country. So,
okay. Now, Iran is the last domino, sort of, as one of the, what do you call it, Pentagon spokespeople once said. After whatever
General Wesley Clark said, we're
exactly.
going to take down 7 countries in 5 years.
Yeah,
it's the last of those, and this feeds America fighting wars for the Greater Israel Project, which again illustrates how controlled the United States is by the Israelis. And their clever dodge is to say, well, all the money that goes into AIPAC, it's not foreign money, it comes from United States citizens. Well, how much of that foreign money is by United States dual citizens who have citizenship both in Israel and in the United States? And it really makes a strong case that dual citizenship needs to be abolished. That either you're an American or you're not. If you're not, get out, stay out, don't come back. That's kind of it. And I actually think that all of the U.S.-Israeli dual citizens should be stripped of their U.S. citizenship and sent to Israel post haste, because they're a bad influence on our policy. I mean, all of the criminality that they're involved in across the board is just breathtaking.
And how many politicians, I mean, have dual citizenship with Israel? I mean, this isn't that
surprisingly many. I mean, many more than the average person would think. And one of the things that the Jewish population does, they may have a very Jewish-sounding name, and they'll change it to something like Lake or Breeze or Smith, Jones. Where they're big on changing their names and hiding their real identities. But they're still loyal to Greater Judea International, if you will. So they're still loyal. They're not loyal to this country at all. No, if they were, they wouldn't do many of the things that they do. But somehow, when you look at both Biden's cabinet and you look at Trump's cabinet, you look at all these top positions, they are disproportionately represented. For something that is alleged for a population that's allegedly 2% or less of our population.
Yeah,
they are extremely overrepresented. They're overrepresented in Hollywood. They're overrepresented in our news media. They're overrepresented in banking. They're overrepresented in education. Mm-hmm. All the things that the Ottoman Empire forbade them from doing. Mm-hmm. They're overrepresented in the U.S. at the same token.
There is no lack of law. I mean, it's just the lack of execution, because this is treason. Whatever political decision makers are making, it's actually Israel first and not America. Make America, first again. So,
that's a tragedy with Trump. I mean, he said "Make America Great Again," and actions like bombing perceived enemies of Israel is making Israel great. I mean, Israel hasn't. If we're involved in a land war in Iran, it's going to go on for decades, mm-hmm. and we're going to lose millions of lives, both Iranian lives as well as American lives. If you look at Iraq as an example, millions of Iraqis were killed. We lost, around fewer than 10,000 American lives, but we have men and women coming home missing limbs. Brain damage, traumatic brain injuries. They're in a state where they will never be able to sustain themselves. And we're doing this for what benefit? What did we get out of this? How did our country benefit from any of this? What is the upside on going to war with Iraq? There was none. We lost. We lost money. We lost lives. We lost global prestige. Same in Afghanistan. What makes you think that Iran will be any different? In fact, Iran being stronger than Afghanistan and Iraq together, we're going to lose more, a lot more. And this is a tragedy. This truly is a foreign policy error on Trump's part. This was, sorry folks, I'm going to swear here. This was a fuck up. I mean, this is a big fuck up. And, once you've done it, you can't unring the bell. So whatever Iran does, if they retaliate anyway, which they have the right to do, is going to result in an escalation on either side, which is, again, a tragedy. The United States is $37 trillion in debt. We can't afford. Our own income doesn't support this country.
Yeah, not including the unfunded liabilities and.
Oh, that's another 200 trillion out there. I mean, just look at if the U.S. has a failed Treasury auction, what that's going to do to the United States is that there will be no Social Security checks. You're going to have senior citizens out there going hungry. You're not going to have any EBT cards being filled, so the permanent underclass is not going to be able to feed themselves. You're not going to have any of the Section 8 housing, so the landlords are going to be evicting people and putting them out on the street. You're not going to have any of the WIC benefits, the women, infants, and children. So you're going to have underweight, malnourished babies and children out there being born. The welfare state will collapse, and it will be. And the other thing is, the United States, we can't afford $1 trillion defense budget. We simply can't afford it, and it's stupid to think so. I mean, if the United States, I was in the business world for a long time, and if the company is not making money, the CEO will call in all of his department heads and say, "Look, this is what our goal is. We need to cut our expenditures by 20% across the board. I want your plan on my desk next week." And they'll go back and figure out how many people they have to lay off, what product development they can keep, what product development they have to kill, where your money makers are, where your losers are. You go through it, you go through every line, and you come back with a plan that says, we've reduced expenditures by 20%. What do you think? So you'll look it over, he'll approve it, he won't approve it, he'll ask for refinements, he'll ask for, whatever he does. But at the end of the day, there's a 20% reduction in expenditures. But you look at our form of government here, where we're a democratic republic, allegedly. It is the most easily corrupted form of government on the planet. We're a special interest because these guys, congressmen in particular, they get elected, they have a big celebration, it's a freshman congressman. The next day he's out raising money for his next campaign. And so anybody who promises them anything, that's why we have so much inertia. That's why there is no change. That's why we cannot cut spending, is because every congressman out there has got somebody who's making a campaign donation to him, paying him to get him reelected again, so that he can protect their interest. Meanwhile, the greater good of the American people is suffering because of this. It's a tragedy. It truly is. This is a tragedy. We're watching it in the making here. A real-time example here. Look at Doge. They put a muzzle on Elon Musk pretty quick, and they kept him from going in and finding. He found what, $200+ billion in cuts that could be made easily in fraud. You look at Social Security, for instance. He found, 27 million people over 100 years old, some as old as 130 years old, still collecting Social Security.
Yeah, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, wasn't the Treasury had a sort of privileged permission to just print out money and just?
Yes, but then you look at the rescission bill that was passed. The courts got involved and said, well, you can't cut that because Congress approved those monies. You don't have the ability to cut those. So they put a rescission bill in Congress. So instead of getting 200 billion in cuts, we got 9.5 billion in cuts. Just a little smattering, just a little, a rounding error, if you will. Never got to look at the Pentagon. Never got to look at all these other government programs. So we're living in a system that has corrupted itself to the core. The United States is not this big pillar of strength. It is not. The country has been gutted. It has rotted from the inside out. It's like you've got this big tree, and it looks mighty and it looks stout, but the core is hollow. It's been rotted out, and a big wind comes along and it blows the tree over. Then you discover the rot. Doge was discovering the rot, and they stopped it because the rot is so pervasive that they didn't want the American people to wake up and say, dear God, this whole thing is a fraud. All of the money that our government gets is going to grifters, where we're seeing very little on essential government services, where we're seeing very, very little. And this is a tragedy. And this is what has been allowed to happen. And it needs to be rectified. It needs to be redone. And, I hate to say it, but we're on the verge of a second American Revolution here, where, you've got people on the left who have their complaints. You have people on the right who have their complaints. The 78 million people who voted for Trump thought he was going to rectify these things and fix them. But, he didn't allow Doge to go full tilt and find everything they could. He didn't open up the Pentagon for an audit. The Pentagon hasn't passed an audit since Donald Rumsfeld came out on 9/10/2001, the day before 9/11, and reported there was $2.3 trillion he couldn't account for.
Again, the tip of the iceberg. I mean, if you listen to Catherine Austin Fitz,
Yes,
that's the official number, $21 trillion missing. I mean, where's the money gone?
Well, that's a great question. If you listen to guys like Richard Dolan and Catherine Austin Fitz, a lot of it's going into these deep underground bases, secret space program, all this stuff. You have to remember, let's go back to when Ronald Reagan was president and he started the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, also known as the Star Wars program. When that happened, all that research, we spent over $1 trillion on that research, and that research just disappeared and went deep black when George H.W. Bush was elected. So hang on one second, please. Let me hit the mute button. Can you hit the pause?
Sure. Yeah.
Pause. Okay, I'm back. We can start up again.
All right. Can we go back to very interesting things you said in the beginning about Trump, because to be honest with you, I mean, I had given up the hopes or the illusion of voting. First of all, I got fooled by Obama. I'm not a U.S. citizen, so I can't talk about voting about any candidate in the United States, but generally in Austria, wherever, I stopped voting. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I mean, when everything culminated with Make America Great Again, Trump, a lot of things, when I looked at his videos like decades ago, it's like, wow, he's speaking truth. And he was really, literally, I think not only for me, but a lot of people outside the United States, for foreigners, like the last hope, the last bastion, I'm asking you, Mike, I mean, how much is he really in control? First of all, is he blackmailed? Is he extorted? Is he being threatened? Is he just a puppet? I mean, what is this figure of a president, I mean, in general, and who is this Trump? Because he admitted himself in his autobiography, he's grown up with the Kabbalah, so he's been groomed, by the most, famous Zionist, whatever,
Roy Cohen. Roy Cohen was his mentor.
Yeah.
And so anybody does any research on Roy Cohen, he was an interesting character there, not really an America firster, but it was a problem. But about back to voting, I'm going to quote. Most Americans are familiar with an author named Samuel Clemens. He wrote under the name of Mark Twain. That was his pen name. He wrote Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and some really great American classic books. He had a famous quote. He says, if voting really mattered and made a difference, it would be illegal. And he wrote that over 100 plus years ago, probably at the late 1800s, so 130, 140 years ago. So the problem with voting is, if it mattered, it would be illegal. They won't allow it. And so the powers that be want to keep things the way they are. They don't want change. Or they don't want things to evolve. They don't want things to accelerate. They don't want things. An example that I can give you, technology-wise, and you and I have had technology discussions at length before. But when you look at a cell phone, like this, this thing has evolved since 1990, when Motorola came out with the first brick-shaped cell phones. The TAC 8300, and into this is more computing power on here than allegedly went to the moon on the Apollo program. We've had tremendous technological improvements in computing power, telecommunications, all of these things. We've had revolutions in this technology here. Now we're seeing AI coming on. These are remarkable technological achievements. Where we haven't seen technological improvements is in the sphere of energy generation. We haven't seen any progress at all. We're still using internal combustion engines.
Yeah, very weird.
And
We're
now,
still burning.
well, let me finish the thought, because there's an economic reason behind this, and this goes back to Iran. See, Iran is one of the major oil suppliers on the planet, and if the city of London, the Western Banking Group, their various countries and companies gain control of the Iranian oil supply, that tells us that we're not going to see any improvements in energy generation technology. We're not going to see the advanced fusion technologies. We're not going to see the zero-point energy technologies. We're not going to see these because they're not going to kill their cash cow, which is which gives them control over the rest of the planet via the energy supply. Energy is control. Energy is wealth. Energy is money. And so what it's telling us that they're going to stay focused on the what we call fossil fuels, that they're not fossil, and oil is a renewable commodity. Texas has proved that, because they had damn near pumped Texas dry. They let it sit fallow for 30 years, and now the wells are pumping again. Funny how that works. It's a self, replacing commodity.
Russian scientists, I think, proved that like decades ago. Yeah.
They don't want the public to know that, because they want to keep the prices high and the supply limited to control the prices. But that's what it tells us, and so they're trying to thwart mankind's evolution technologically into unlimited and low cost, if not free, energy sources. And so that is why Iran is important to them, and why they're willing to go to thermonuclear war for Iran, whereas they didn't care about North Korea. Oh, they fussed a little bit. They made some lip service noise, but they did nothing. And you look at how North Korea armored themselves. Do you think Iran is any less militarily prepared for a war than North Korea is? Do you really think that? I think the Iranians are pretty smart people. And one thing, I did an interview on Izvestia Thursday. And one thing people don't understand, they underestimate Iran. They think Iran is like Afghanistan. It's not. Iran is an extremely technologically advanced culture. I mean, extremely. Some of the best engineers, some of the best scientists on the planet are Iranians. Brilliant men, brilliant and women. Brilliant people.
And the sanction embargoes just push them further, even. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because now mother is necessity is the mother of invention, and so Iran is going to come out and start showing us technologies that have been withheld. I want to remind everyone of the USS Donald Cook incident that happened in the Black Sea 5, 6, 7 years ago, where the USS Donald Cook is an Aegis class destroyer. Aegis class destroyers were developed to protect aircraft carrier groups. They're full spectrum, full dominance type of protective grid they can put around an entire carrier group. Nothing can come land, sea, air, underwater, above water. Nothing can approach it. They've got an approach. They're going to hit it. They're going to see it. They're going to attack it. They're going to knock it out. The Aegis destroyer is 60% of what the Iron Dome is. There's always an Aegis destroyer off the coast of Israel running watch for them, to support their Iron Dome. But anyway, the USS Donald Cook was on a routine cruise to the Black Sea. They have no business being there. They're on a routine cruise through it. 2 MiG-27 jets flew over it, and they immobilized it. They stopped the USS Donald Cook, kept it inert, dead in the water. They couldn't use a radio. They couldn't turn on a light. They couldn't turn on a radar, sonar, nothing. They couldn't launch a missile. They couldn't do anything that required electronic current.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so what they did, and people aren't aware of this, but I'll go ahead and reiterate this. I've had this talk before. The Russians have it. I'm highly confident the Iranians have it, but that is a technology that will stop the flow of electrons within an electronic circuit without damaging the circuit. because when the two Russian jets flew back over the other direction, Donald Cook came back online immediately, like nothing ever happened. Now, what the follow-on story to that is, the entire officer command on the USS Donald Cook, when they got back to port in Virginia, resigned. And they said, why are you all resigning? Because we cannot uphold our duty to protect our craft and our crew. We were helpless. There's nothing we could do. These are the technologies that have not been revealed yet to the American public. Russians have them. We know this. They gave us a demo on that. The Iranians have them too. I mean, Colonel Jim Hankey, he was a U.S. Special Forces colonel. He and I met with Iranian physicists in Italy at a particular event a while back. Mm-hmm. And we were given a briefing, an in-depth briefing on what Iran has and doesn't have as far as these yet to be revealed technologies. If you remember last week, the Iranian Minister of Defense came out and said, we're about to introduce technologies that you won't see coming.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation on behalf of, I don't know, a lot of, people who don't have a clue, what's been going on the last 40 years in Iran, whether it be nuclear technology or plasma technology or any other, field of technology that's been, done out of the box, researching, developing, implementing, right? On a lot of fields.
Well, like I said, I don't know a great deal about it, but I did get an introduction to what the level of research, the direction where the research was going. Now, can this be applied to weapon systems? Yeah, but that was not the Iranians' goal. The goal was to make a better society, to make a better world. That's what their goal is. Now, do they have to adapt those things to weapons technologies? I think that they better pick up their game and get on it, because Trump proved that he's not afraid to attack a non-aggressor to please his Israeli Jew masters. That's like I said, I never thought I'd see the day where I think Donald Trump's dumber than George W. Bush, but he is. So
yeah.
Yeah. You talk about unmitigated failures as president. George W. Bush was an unmitigated failure. And it looks like Donald Trump, if he pursues this course of action, is going to exceed that level of unmitigated failure.
It's devastatingly shocking, to be honest with you, because, this is the question I'm asking, and, constantly. It's like, who is in control? Is he in control at all? Is he being blackmailed, threatened? Or is it just pure corruption? Pure corruption. I don't know what it is, but the control structure is becoming, so crystal clear, obvious. Who's controlling whom?
Well, let me answer your question for you. You ask, is it blackmail? Is it bribery? Is it corruption? What other ones did you have in there?
Extortion, threatening, threats. I could imagine.
Well, let me
talk about JFK. JFK.
Well, let me give you the short answer. It's D, all of the above. Mm-hmm. Remember how you take multiple choice tests, A, B, C, or D? It's D, all of the above. It's all of the above. This adversary that we have, some people call it global Zionism. I call it the Khazarian Mafia. They're the ones who are about this, but it's deeper than that. And I'm going to get a little esoteric on you here. I've known in my lifetime a number of Jewish people, a good number of them. And some of them are pretty smart guys, but they're not that smart. They're not that smart that they can consolidate and own 98% of the planetary wealth, where 2% of their population controls entire governments of countries. They're not that smart. It's my assumption here that some hidden hand that we don't see, that we don't understand, that we can't identify yet, is coaching them, is advising them, is directing them somehow. Because the plans that we're seeing, you write a business plan, it's a 5-year plan. And companies redo their 5-year plans every couple of years and adjust them to this and that. But what we're watching unfold before our eyes are 50-year, 100-year, 500-year plans. I don't know any human beings who are capable of putting together a 500-year plan. It's something that has a different view of time or a different lifespan than what humanity has. I mean, we live to be, 75, 80, 85, maybe 90 years old if you're lucky. Have a long life. I don't know how lucky you are. Aging stinks. But 5 years is a significant amount of time to plan. And when you write a 5-year plan, what it looked like on day one and the position you end up at day 5, if you don't fail and go bankrupt, is very different than what you wrote day one about where you were going to be in 5 years. So I can't imagine what it takes to write a 100-year or 500-year plan. It's quite incredible, actually. But I think something out there is helping them. I look at the chemtrails in the sky. I look at the pollution, how the world is the toxicity of the chemicals, the agricultural chemicals that are poisoning the topsoil 10 feet down. It's killing the biome in the soil. It's killing, the fungus, the bacteria, the earthworms, all the bugs that live in there. It's killing them too. So our soil is becoming less and less fertile the more and more of these chemicals, these fertilizer, herbicides, fungicides that we use. I'm seeing the life on this planet being killed. I mean, you look at the bad guy of carbon. We can't release carbon in the atmosphere anymore. We have to capture it. Carbon is the gas of life. Every form of life on this planet is a carbon-based life form. You take the carbon away, you take the life away. Less carbon, less life. More carbon, more life. So we're moving in a direction where it looks to me like the planet is being terraformed by some unknown, unseen object. The Pacific garbage patch, microplastics in everything. They say every human being in the United States has got half a teaspoon of microplastics in your brain already. These things, these are not accidental. These are cumulative traumas that are building up against the human race, and it looks like they're here. They have the stated goal. They want to reduce the population by 95%.
Yeah.
These things, take them serious, folks. I mean, it all sounds like lunatic conspiracy theory until you take the time, do the study, and do the math. And hey, these are valid points. These are things. You look at the whole COVID thing. Dear God, what an abomination that was.
It's like in our faces. I mean, the attacks are like on every imaginable level. Would it be food, bioweapons? I mean, mRNA vaccines. What are they? They are bioweapons. Chemtrails. I mean, they can measure the whatever toxins you have, barium, strontium. I don't know, aluminium. It's all in the fucking soil. You can just measure it. Just look at the data, the information, the reality, the truth. It's mind-boggling. And to be honest with you, I'm totally, I've been in this rabbit hole, but I think a lot of people maybe cannot follow when you talk about who are the real, the faces or the entities we have not seen. We don't even have to go to the alien, aspect of it, but
no, we don't. We don't. I mean, we might have entities existing right by us at this moment that we because our perception is so limited.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, our access to the electromagnetic spectrum through sight, sound, and olfactory is so narrow that what are we missing is the question. So the interesting set of questions here. But who are we? Where are we going? How do we fight this? How do we stop this? How do we get humanity back to where it needs to go? We were on a path, and we've been knocked off of that path. If you listen to Cliff Hyde and you look at some of the genetic research, it appears that our chromosomes have been modified.
Yeah.
The first and second have been welded together, CRISPR type technology. If you read the Bible and it says Noah lived to be 968 years old, how was he gifted with such a wonderful lifespan, and we're given 75, 80 years? I mean, it's like we got adjusted somehow. But I don't want to get too far off into the weeds here, because we can talk on these other topics all day, and we have so if it's limited hard data on these things, it's difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
But we can speculate and take it as speculation.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing here with the Iranians and the Russians both is a new physics. that is opening up, and a new way of looking at physics to where everything we were told is wrong. You look at how Mr. Heaviside edited Maxwell's equations so that they never worked quite right, and the original Maxwell equations have never been seen again. You look at how the Tesla research disappeared, and the FBI took possession of 2 train cars full of research, and it's never been allowed to see the light of day. Somebody, something is wanting to keep us in the dark,
Yeah.
and not allow us on the technological path that we need to be on to evolve. And I was so thrilled with Trump. If you look at his first inauguration speech back in January of 2017, when he alluded to the breakthroughs in technology, the breakthroughs in energy, the breakthroughs in healthcare, all of these things, these breakthroughs, and yet we're totally black, totally silent. When's the last time you heard him talk about it?
Exactly. Yeah. Or one of his, what is it, White House press speaker, whatever. Didn't he say in one of his speeches, like, we have the technology to bend time and space? Just recently?
Yes.
Oh,
He was not he was not part of the press corps. He was one of the science
okay. Thank you.
advisors. Yeah, and yes, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. It eludes me right now. But he came out and said that we have the ability to bend time and space. And so, what does that mean? Can you give us a demonstration? Can you show us what you're talking about? And these are the type of things. I mean, I know the Iranians have been working on them for 40 years. I know the Russians have been working on them since the end of World War II, maybe longer. You listen to the Richard Dolans of the world, the Catherine Austin Fitts, and you listen to them allude about the missing money of the 21 trillion that disappeared. What did it buy? Did it buy these underground bases? Did it build a secret space program? What did these things? Where did the funds get used? Or they just have people living rich? And that brings me back to the Doge thing. Now, and let me give you the other reason that Doge was thwarted is because you've got people out there who are living off the grift. You've got companies, you've got individuals. I mean, you look at that congresswoman who said, well, my grandma died 13 years ago. I've been cashing them checks. You think she's not going to miss that 13, 14, 1,500 bucks a month grandma was getting in every month? Think she wants to give it up? Anybody who is living off the corruption has got a burn rate, the amount of money that they burn through every month. They don't want to give up the grift. They don't want to. They're politically powerful. They have money that they've stolen from taxpayers, and they're going to fight to keep it. And that's why Musk was forced out, and that's why the rescission bill was only 9.8 billion instead of 200 plus billion, because that money was going to go away, and the people who were paying their car payment, their house payment, their second house payment, their third house payment off of that didn't want to go into foreclosure and lose everything. So they fought back. They pushed back hard. They pushed the levers of power that they have access to, and they forced them to back off. And the United States is going to collapse. It's going to collapse from rot from within, because that's the one thing that criminal organizations do is they don't build anything. They don't create anything. All they do is they suck the life out of viable businesses and viable governments and viable people. They corrupt them, and they suck them dry. It's like a spider that traps the fly and sucks all the life out. It sucks all the fluid out of it. That's what they're doing to my country. That's what they're doing to the global community. That's why Europe is so weak. That's why the United States is looking so weak. China is still strong and vibrant, but their turn is going to come too. You can't suck the life out of it until it's a strong, vigorous entity. And so China's turn is going to come as well. And China's having their problems right now. China is another one that people look at and they say, oh, they're strong, they're powerful, they're on the up and up. No, they were gifted a lot of technology by Bill Clinton when he gifted them nuclear technology. I mean, nuclear delivery technology through Loral Systems. He gave them the ability to MIRV a missile. Before that, China only had the ability to put one warhead per missile. and they didn't have the accuracy to get within 50 miles of the target. Now, after Bill Clinton gave them technology from morale, they could put 8 warheads on a single missile and get them within 50 feet of the target. A little different equation. Bill Clinton did that to the United States. A guy named Schwartzman, who owned Loral Systems, got very, very wealthy off of licensing that technology to China and didn't do any jail time for committing treason against the U.S. So these are the things that happened. Then Bill Clinton allowed China access to our entire patent portfolio. Free of charge. Take it all. If you want to know how we build bicycle tires, here's the technology to do it. It's past expiration. You can have access to it here. It's yours. That's what Bill Clinton did. So you wonder why China is such an economic powerhouse. It's because they didn't have to invest anything in R&D. And then they have ongoing espionage, industrial espionage efforts to steal all the technology they can steal. I was thrilled when Trump said, no, we're not going to allow any foreign students into U.S. universities. We're going to educate our own people first. We're going to make room for them at Harvard, MIT, Stanford, all the best schools. Oh, no, that was reversed by a judge. It says that some judge who says that we have to allow foreign students in. Really? Do we? Why? So they can, pirate and steal our technology and take it back home to China or to wherever it is they come from. That's not what universities exist for. The United States is like Gulliver on Gulliver's Travels, where the Lilliputians had him tied down and he couldn't move. That is where we're at in this country. We cannot do the things we need to do to protect our country and make it great again, to make it well again. These are things that must be addressed. That's what we had hoped Trump was going to do. But Trump has demonstrated that he has abdicated his presidency to Bibi Netanyahu and is going to allow Bibi Netanyahu to decide what our foreign policy is. That's this is a tragic day for the United States. It really is. But by the same token, those Americans who are awake enough to see what's going on will say that he's done us a favor, because now it's hard to deny that the United States has been subjugated by Israel and by the Jewish lobby to do their will, not what is in the best interest of the American people.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine how vital our country could become if we actually had a foreign policy that promoted the best interest of the United States and its people? It'd be awesome. Awesome.
As you know, Mike, I mean, as you know, my podcast is, naturally focused on the monetary system, Bitcoin, as a root solution. So this is where it's, and you already, talked about it like explicitly, like, but, City of London, the financial system, the central banking system. So this is all the root system. I think maybe it cannot solve 100% of all the symptoms and the tentacles, but it will solve fundamentally, structurally, a lot of things. Now, I want to go back. I mean, as an Iranian or born in Iran, at least the Iranians you ask outside of Iran, they give you an honest opinion and assessment and say, I'm neither a fan of, I'm not a fan or advocate of the mullahs, ayatollahs, or theocratic religious systems, but without the intelligence, the wisdom, the creativity of the Iranian people themselves. And since I have, also some part of my family still over there from my mother's side, I do care, about the people of Iran. So without the intelligence, creativity, and wisdom and ingenuity of Iranian people, Iran wouldn't have had developed this amazing, just to say on a conventional military defensive level, this kind of sophistication. Now, whether how far they have exceeded or advanced, in plasma, whatever magnetic field technology or plasma technology, defensive technologies, all those things that, as we talked about, with Aston Forbes last time. Now, I'm a little bit amazed or fascinated by the naivete or of a lot of people, and people who have not even taken position on the systemic genocide being perpetrated by Israel or whatever, Zionists or the Jews, So there is a Well, there's a post by Ashton Forbes. He says, "I guarantee you, Iran does not have this technology." He means the 0 point, plasma technology, and in connection with the MH370. "I doubt Russia or China do either. The United States does, though, and that means they'll do whatever the fuck they want. They can disappear a civilian airline and make you believe it's totally a normal thing that happens." Now, I don't know how to interpret some of his statements or posts, but if let's just assume if Iran does have beyond the conventional advanced technologies, whether it be missiles, self-developed, whatever, radio systems, drones, reverse engineered or not, partially adopted or not, what is the role of Iran? I mean, in between, you alluded, or you explicitly mentioned China and Russia. What if Iran we're going to see, as you've already articulated it so well, it's going to be a disaster not starting in the Middle East, geopolitically, geoeconomically, Strait of Hormuz. And then structurally, the whole global system. What are we talking about here? What do you see?
Well, first of all, let me speak very carefully here. What I see here is that Iran is a linchpin. When I was in Damascus, Syria, in 2014, at the International Convention to Combat Terrorism and Religious Extremism, sponsored by the government of Bashar al-Assad, I was a guest of the Syrian Minister of Justice. During that meeting, we met with Russian operatives, let's just say that, okay? And we were talking about the geopolitical situation and the fake war that was imposed upon Syria. This was funded by the U.S., coordinated by Israel to topple the Assad government. John McCain was over there meeting with al-Baghdadi, giving them, guns, weapons, stuff. I saw a tow missile manufactured by Raytheon Corporation in Tucson, Arizona, in the possession of the Assad government that they had taken from ISIS terrorists. Okay, so we were funding ISIS to topple them. But the Russians, we were talking about this and how to preserve the Assad government, because the Iranians and the Russians both understood that if Damascus fell, and it fell about 6 weeks ago, that the next stop would be Iran, Tehran. And then once Tehran falls, the next stop is Moscow, because it was going to come straight up from the south to the north into Moscow. So Damascus fell. 6 weeks later, the United States is attacking Iran. Israel is attacking Iran. So that is, it's following the chain of events. So, unless we want to go into a full world war, this has to be stopped. The Iranians need the help of the Chinese. They're going to need the help of the Russians. They're going to need the help of the North Koreans in order to stop this assault to take Moscow apart, tear it apart. China has no choice. I was on a podcast with a guy named Scott Bennett, and when they first started the Gaza genocide. And I said, look, if you're in Jordan, if you're in Syria, if you're in Lebanon, if you're in Egypt, if you're in, Yemen or anywhere in the Middle East, you need to unite and fight against Israel, because it may be Gaza today, but it's going to be you tomorrow. And by golly, my words were true, because you look at what's going on in Lebanon, you look at what's going on in Syria, and now you look at the attack on Iran. So there is no choice that the parties who are not involved today have to support the parties that are involved today, because they will be next. And you have greater chance of success if you get in early and fight hard than if you wait later. Let them pick off Syria, and now they're in Iran. Once Iran goes, where is next? You have to ask these questions. You have to see what the bigger chessboard is. And right now, innocent people are dying. People who've done nothing. They've done nothing wrong. They just live their lives. They're dying. Wholesale level dying. They're being killed by the hundreds of thousands. And this is not how it's meant to be. The U.S. needs to rewrite its foreign policy. In fact, I'll send you a paper that I wrote about strategic downsizing for the United States military and how it needs to occur, what needs to happen. You can put it up on your site if you wish. But it's a different plan for how the U.S. We don't need to spend $1 trillion a year on a defense budget. Defense budgets create nothing; they destroy everything. We need to get into a position where we're creating wealth, and we're creating monuments, infrastructure for posterity, not just to be destroyed. But that's another topic. It's a whole nother lecture. But where is this going to go? See, one thing criminals do, and they're good at this. If you're a criminal, and you go out and you shoplift a package of gum, you get a little minor item, 50, 60 cents. You got away with it. Yeah, it was easy. We'll get another one. That was easy. You know what? I want to get another snack too. Get the gum and a snack. And criminals keep going until they're caught. And these global criminals have been raping and pillaging countries wholesale-wide for hundreds of years now. And it's time they got caught and were held to account. It's time they were all executed. And so they're going to continue doing what they have been doing until they're caught and executed. Otherwise, we have no work. We don't have a future. Every country is going to end up looking like Britain, which is a disaster, looking like Europe, another disaster, the United States becoming a disaster. We're all going to end up looking like Ukraine, war-torn, shredded. I want to avoid this. Humanity deserves better. Deserve much better than this. And it's time that we stopped being the idiots that we have been, allowing these people to drive decisions that affect the entire planet. It's time we stopped it.
Yeah. Marandi, right? Is that Iranian analyst, geopolitical Professor Marandi? Or have you heard of him?
I don't know him personally, no.
Okay. So he said, he'd done a really very crystal clear statement. He said, first of all, whatever we think about this theocratic, system, ayatollahs, mullahs, but they do. I mean, the ethical position that the nuclear bomb is immoral, unethical. They have repeatedly said that, and the question is really, I mean, the Iranians have this technology. They don't even need external help to build this, right? So they could probably build this within a few days or maybe maximum a few weeks, right? And the question is, I mean, do they? This whole, possession of a nuclear bomb is so mind-boggling. It's so fucked up because it's just a psychological deterrence, right?
Well, let me interject something here. Donald Trump says he's the great deal maker. And if he really wanted to make a deal, the deal he should make is to disarm Israel, take their nuclear weapons from them, have them give up their nuclear weapons so Iran would not have to pursue a nuclear weapon. That is the smart move. That's the right thing to do. But everybody wants to ignore the elephant in the room, and that is Israel has nuclear weapons. They've came out and said so. Exactly. Rabbi Shmuley said that Israel has nuclear weapons. Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, Colin Powell came out and said Israel has nuclear weapons. Everybody knows it, but nobody does anything about it. Nobody says a word, or very rarely do they. And the United States and many other countries are forbidden to have any transactional relationships with any country that has nuclear weapons, hasn't disclosed them, and has not signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So the United States is being hypocritical and not following their own laws and not honoring the treaties that they have already signed. And you look at what treaties does Israel have with anybody? We don't have any treaties with Israel. We don't have any obligation to defend them other than the hundreds of millions of dollars they pump into political campaigns every year. And see, here's the thing. If you're a politician and you come out and say, no, I don't support Israel, they're wrong because of this and that, the next election cycle, the Israelis will put somebody to run against you, and they'll give them whatever money it takes to get you out of office. Like I said earlier, 96% of the time, the guy with the most money wins. The Israeli lobby will make sure the other guy has more money than you if you oppose them. That's how they control our political system. And that's just flat wrong. and we as the American people have allowed this to happen. And now we need to undo this damage that the Israelis have caused our political system, because they have really distorted our national interest, which is really not a national interest for Americans, for the benefit of Americans. It's for the benefit of the Israeli lobby and for the Jews who support it. And that's really a tragedy. We're really a fraud of a country right now. We have become criminals. You look at the villains of the world, growing up, being a child in 50s, 60s, 70s. The Soviet Union, they were the evil empire. They were the ones who were spreading violence and discord. They were going to topple governments and put in communist governments around the world. Well, the United States has taken their place. The Soviet Union collapsed in 1988. And now the U.S. has replaced them. So instead of having a USSR, we have a USSA, and we have become the ones who plant color revolutions and topple governments. And you look at Ukraine. How the U.S. State Department spent $5 billion to go in and depose the duly elected, democratically elected president, Viktor Yanukovych, drove him from the country and put in a Jew puppet. And now you look where we're at with the war with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, it's the hypocrisy is just so overwhelming. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
But it's all because of this one little group of people that comprises like 0.4% of the global population, 2% of the population in the U.S. But they control what goes on. They have disproportionate amount of influence.
Right.
And this is not the way government's supposed to work.
Exactly. And who's been funding the divide and rule agendas, whether it be Bolshevism, Marxism, the 60 million Christians who have been exterminated, whether through starvation or whatever. It's always the same. It's the same rabbit hole over and over again. It's just mind-boggling.
I'm glad you brought up the Bolsheviks, because the Bolsheviks, if you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he said that it was not a Russian revolution. It was an invasion of Bolsheviks into Russia who toppled their government, and resulting in the murder of 100 million Christian men, women, and children, and the theft of their property. Well, let's fast forward to Gaza right now. They're going to kill 8 million in Gaza and steal their property. They've already said that they're going to steal it. Trump wants to go in there and build condos and a casino, of course. And so this is their business model. They go in and they murder the indigenous population, they steal their property, and you wonder why there's so many wealthy Jews. That's a big reason why. But these things, we can stop it. What the world has to do is look at every Jew will say, well, I didn't do anything with it. I was no part of it. No, but you support it. And what Netanyahu and Trump have done is they've planted targets on the back of every American citizen who's traveling anywhere in the world. You painted targets on the back of any Jew who's traveling in the world, just for random violence, come up and be murdered. That is what Trump and Netanyahu have done to their populations. They have put targets on them, and rightfully so, because humanity cannot tolerate this much longer. We've got to end the people who are causing the problems for all of humankind.
Yeah.
And this is a tragedy, but you can't make a scorpion not sting, and that's what they do. That's what they've done. That's why Russia and Persia destroyed the Khazarian Empire in the 9th century and forced them to disperse and adapt Judaism. That's why. The same reason. Their behavior has not changed. They're still the name stealers. They will kill you, steal your name, and steal your property. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's funny is when they say they've been evicted, from what 100 over 100 countries, 1,000 times.
So countries.
Yeah, but they never say why. They never say why.
But they've been kicked out of the same country multiple times. It's for the same reason. It's because you look at things. Who runs pornography? Who runs human trafficking? Who runs drug trafficking? Who runs gambling? Who runs alcohol? Who runs all of these corrupting influences? Whose business? Who is in that business?
Systemic pedophilia. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who runs that? Who
Yeah.
controls it? But going back to Iran, like I said, I'm not a fan of a theocratic government.
Me
I'm
neither.
not. I
Yeah.
just I see some very strong good virtues in Islam. I also see some weaknesses and some defects in Islam
Yeah.
that I don't approve of. I don't
Exactly.
approve of how they treat women. I don't approve of a lot of things. The Sharia law. There's just a lot of things that I don't agree with, but there's many that I do. So I'm of mixed mind on that. But I don't want to see a theocracy. I don't want to see a Catholic theocracy. I don't want to see a Christian theocracy. I don't want to see a Muslim theocracy or a Hindu theocracy. I want religion to be a deeply personal thing
Hmm.
between a person and their God,
Spiritual.
however they choose to worship, wherever they do. But I don't want to see that imposed upon people. I want people to make their own choice
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
as to how it is. That's my only disagreement there. So I think government needs to stay separate from what religion is. But that being said, one of the things that Islam does really well is it keeps Islam is more than just a religion. It's a governing system too.
Mhm.
So it keeps a lot of the corruption that other governments have out.
Mhm.
At least those avenues, at least certain avenues. I'm not saying that they're not corrupt. They're not corrupt in the same way as the Western governments are. So that's the thing. But these things need to be looked at. They need to be respected. We need to get along because with weapons that are beyond the capabilities of nuclear weapons, humanity will not survive if we don't figure out a way to get along. And when you have a predatory parasite class like Jews are proving themselves to be time and again, in why they get kicked out of countries. They're predatory parasites. And once the body politic figures this out, they eject them. They don't want nothing to do with them. And so, they've either got to mitigate their bad behaviors or they need to be dealt with it another way. And I can't suggest what that might be. That'll be up to the individuals who have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound esoteric, but there are no coincidences. There are culminating a lot of events, even your geophysical ones, the exponential reduction of the Earth's magnetic field, the imminent, let's say in the next few decades, the magnetic pole shift, the wars, depending. I mean, this is mind blowing, but you talk about oil. So, Middle East about oil, and as you said yourself, oil it just regenerates itself. So there must be something, something beyond that. I think it goes over the head of most people, especially when you talk about technologies that are already existing, but it's just beyond their imagination or comprehension. You talk about 0 point energy or whatever plasma technology. People cannot even fathom that this technology already exists. So, and people cannot even imagine what kind of life, what kind of elevated civilization we could have had like 100 years ago or now. So it's really a tragedy. But so as I told you, my podcast is Bitcoin focused. That's the root solution for me. But is there anything to end this on a positive note? Anything else we can do, like besides education or adopting anything, disclosure?
Well, one thing I learned many times ago, and this is, I need to point this out as well with this parasite class that is preying on humanity. They use our virtues against us. Okay. You look at the United States, you look at this situation where Joe Biden took and gave refugee status to, millions of people who aren't refugees. They just want in because it's a better life here. They want in. And so he gave them refugee status. Well, those laws were not created for that, but that is an example of how our virtues are used against us. You look at Europe, the situation they're in with the refugees. They have this agreement to take in refugees because when you're in trouble, when your country's at war, when you're being genocided, you want to get away from there. You should have a safe place to go to, but you need to go back home once the trouble has stopped. And that's the thing that none of them want to go back home. That's an issue. And you look at how much did the war in Syria caused by the U.S. and the Israelis cause refugees to flee Syria and go into Europe. How much did the war in Ukraine cause people to flee Ukraine and go into Europe? These things, you have to look at the long-term consequences, and you have to not allow your virtues to be exploited by people who are there to exploit them. And I'm not saying that the refugees are the exploiters, but the people who enable them to come in to weaken the indigenous societies that are there, whether it's in Italy or France or Germany or Ireland. They're the ones who are suffering from it. So you as the indigenous people cannot allow this to happen. You have to stand up for yourself. I mean, I think that all people have the right to self-determination and to create a sovereign nation of their people, their clan, their type of people. There's similarities between the French and the Italians, but they're not the same. The French have their way, the Italians have their way, the Germans have a different way. They all have the right to self-determination, and not have this bigger organization of the EU come in and say, no, you have to do it this way. We all have that right of self-determination, and this is the people of Iran. If they want a theocracy, by golly, let them have the theocracy. If they don't want it, take the moves to disband it and move in something better, something else that they like. And what we're looking at here globally with the internet and the global age, the introduction of AIs, we're looking at having a global government imposed upon us via credit scores and via other things that we don't agree with. And we all have to resist this. Catherine Austin Fitts is a really good person to listen about this, because once they gain control over your money, like I support Bitcoin, but I do not support a central bank digital currency.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to keep my financial transactions private to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have them say, well, you've driven too far, you're beyond your 50-mile limit, so we're not going to allow your credit card to work to buy gas to get home. No, you're out of your geographic area. We're not going to allow you to charge a meal so that you can have food. You got to stay in your own little cubby hole that we assigned you to. People need to keep in mind that our freedom, our sovereignty is the only thing that we have as individuals, as groups, and as nations. And that self-determination should be up to us, but also responsibility for our own actions. If you go out and you're drunk driving and you hurt someone, you need to be held responsible financially and criminally. Hurting other people is not allowed. And, we need to have a way of enforcing these things and dealing with these things, responsible behavior. And so all I can say to people to keep you, we're not beaten yet. We outnumber them tens of millions to one. And all we have to do is become ungovernable. You see, all government exists by consent of the governed. And withdraw your consent. Do not agree to doing the things that you know are not right. You never do wrong by doing the right thing. But it's your decision to do what is the right thing. Lying, cheating, stealing, these are not good things. Don't do them. Be a good person. Show kindness to your fellow man. Yeah, I do not want to see American, I like you. You're a good guy. You and I look at it as friends. I don't want to see my family members go to Iran and fight your family members and have your guys die and my guys come home in body bags. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it happen. It's not necessary. But there are those parties out there who want to control us and want to control the planet and want to control the population. And those are the ones that we have to resist. And hopefully we shall be successful in this. So,
yeah, I'm convinced. I mean, we are sort of on a precipice, on a tipping point. With it goes in this direction or the other direction. Decentralization, centralization, peace, or World War III. Would you agree with me? I mean, is that
we are? We're on the edge, but I really don't think that. Here's how I read it. The old system is collapsing. The Western financial system is dying because they've run out of people to lend to. They've lent so much money that the people who borrowed it can't pay it back. And they can't borrow anymore to pay back their old debt. So it's going to collapse. That's why they're trying to have these wars to secure more resources so they can loot Russia, they can loot Iran, they can, come in and, loot all the resources that are there. But they've run out. There isn't any more give in the Western debt-based financial system. It's run. See, here's what people don't realize: when you go out to buy a car, they'll lend you the money to buy the car. But where does the money come from to pay the interest? They don't create that money. So you may buy a car for $50,000, but to pay it off over the course of the loan, it might cost you $80,000. There's $30,000 out there that's missing, that didn't get created when that loan was created. And so that's the deficit. That has to come from some other source. You have to get it from somebody else. You have to take the fruits of their labor to pay off your debt for your car. It's the same for a house. A house in America used to cost $250,000, but it cost you $800,000 to pay it off over 30 years. Now a house in America costs, $500,000-$600,000. It's going to cost you, $1.6 million, $1.8 million to pay it off. They're not making the extra money, and so we're seeing our financial system unwind. There's no way to stop it. Then you look at the U.S. government, $37 trillion in debt, and as you mentioned, another $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities out there. Where's this money coming from? It's got to come from someplace. We have to take it from someone else, or we have to print it, create it out of thin air, in which case inflation goes through the roof.
Exactly.
So we're really on the verge here. I'm looking for a global financial collapse. I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I like how quick it is. I like how transparent it is. I like that the blockchain exists. There's no room for fraud. You've got the record. It's there. It exists. I like the Monero even better because it maintains privacy.
Privacy, yeah.
But these things are there. But the trouble with Bitcoin is if we have power outages.
Exactly. Yes.
On basis. All right. Or you're like that guy who lost his 9,000 bitcoins on a hard drive, and he turned over the entire landfill looking for it. He still hasn't found it.
It's a self-custody. It's a paradigm shift. There is a hotline you can call. It's just self-responsible self-custody. That's the
he's finally given up on the search. But if there's a power shortage, how do you access your digital currency? Well, you can't. So you need to have a balance of digital currency and hard currency. And hard currency means gold and silver, things that actually have value, things that you can take in, to a store and buy a gallon of gas with. That's the thing. That's why silver is important. Gold. If you go into a gas station with a Krugerrand and you want to fill up your tank, all right, let's say gas is at $20 a gallon, and you took 20 gallons, you're $400. How do you get change out of a Krugerrand that's worth $3,500? How does the guy make change for you? It's kind of a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems that gold is missing.
That's where silver comes in, because the silver dollar should buy you between 4 and 5 gallons. Anytime, anywhere, any place.
Yeah.
And so, silver, that's why it was currency for so long. But these are other types of problems that we're not going to get into today because we can go on forever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, I'm pretty honest about that, but especially when it comes to Bitcoin, I think a lot of Bitcoiners have a cognitive dissonance or ignorance about it. It's like, you said, what if the grid is gone? What if we have sort of a Carrington-like event? Not like, I'm not even talking about EMPs or artificial attacks, like Carrington event, like
a sun flare, solar flare that
it's gone.
Things down.
Yeah,
it's down for 6 months or a year. How do you get it? How do you access your currency? You don't.
Exactly. And we are pretty close to that, but okay, we don't want to talk about that. Anyway, Mike, I really appreciate always you're such a holistic comprehension of everything, and thank you so much for sharing your time. Just final words. We still need to close this up on a positive note. Do you think, because it's escalating so fast, so quickly with Iran, what do you see in the next few days, weeks, months ahead? Is it? What do you see?
Iran has some hard decisions to make. I saw the news feeds this morning. Iran clobbered Israel last night, man. I mean, the Iron Dome is no longer functional. It's the Iron Sieve. They're getting as many or landing as they're stopping. They're running out of ammunition for the Iron Dome. It's not going to be viable much longer. Israel needs help because Iran has, I can't say an endless supply, but they have a multitude of very, very effective missile technologies. And these are conventional technologies. What people don't realize, in addition to missile technology, Iran has been working on improving conventional explosives, where they have super energetic explosives, beyond what TNT or C4 or Semtex type explosives are. They have super energetic explosives that have 5-10 times the power of if you had a pound of this explosive versus a pound of TNT, it's 10 times 10 times more effective. So they're going to be loading up their missiles with that. They haven't even shown that yet. That's still to come. Israel needs to sue for peace. Trump needs to force Israel to give up their nuclear program. If you look at who the outlaw nation is, who the criminal nation is, it's Israel. They've got a nuclear program. They've not disclosed it. They're conning the world. They're pretending like poor little Israel. We were in the Holocaust. Oh, boo-hoo. Nobody cares. The American people, we don't care about Israel. We could care less. I mean, my entire life I've heard this nonsense about Israel. I don't care about Israel. In fact, if Iran was successful and they did disappear off the planet, I'm not going to miss them. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Do I want to see an unnecessary loss of life? I do not.
And how many times has Iran proposed to have a nuclear-free Middle East? I mean, just recently, again and again.
I know. I mean, if Trump wants to prove he's a negotiator, negotiate that deal. Make it a nuclear-free Middle East. I mean, here's another move that Russia and Iran can take, okay? The U.S. has 87 nuclear warheads in Turkey at the Incirlik Air Base, okay? They're defended by the most advanced U.S. systems. That anybody coming in, you're not going to bomb it, you're not going to attack it, you're not going to hit it on the ground. Why doesn't Russia do the same thing and put 87 nuclear devices into Iran on a Russian military base down there? Put your S-500 systems around it, secure the whole country with S-500s. No one will come into Iran ever again. And what you're doing is matching, eye for an eye, if you will. You're going to do this in Turkey, we're going to do it in Iran. That would stop the aggression of the Israelis right now. But really, the deal to be made is Trump needs to disarm the Israelis. He needs to defang their nuclear fangs and get rid of them, because then you would have a nuclear-free Middle East. You wouldn't need to have nukes in the Middle East, and it would be greater peace for everyone. And then maybe the Israelis would learn to be better neighbors to their other countries and better global citizens, instead of being the assholes they are to the world right now, because they are assholes. They are predatory parasites, and their bad behavior needs to stop.
Yeah. Well, I wish peace, Mike. I really wish peace.
But we all do. I mean, and no one. I mean, I was really unsettled last night with Trump's stupid decision to bomb Iran. That was really dumb, really, really stupid. But the rest of the world, the Chinese and the Russians, better be paying attention, because they have a dog in this fight. North Korea too. They better be paying attention, and they better be supporting. The Arab neighbors should be supporting Iran.
Exactly. This is what
Turkey should switch sides and support Iran.
Yeah.
Because Turkey is not going to be allowed to remain.
Yeah, they've all been so hypocritical. All these whatever Arab countries, Turkey, all hypocritical. I mean, doing one thing, talking about, it's mind-blowing.
But you look at what the Israelis do with their intel networks. They're committing espionage against all of these Arab countries and inciting them against each other constantly.
Yeah.
It's the concept of third-party laws. You have two neighbors, you have a third neighbor. The third neighbor is telling the first neighbor, "Hey, this guy's sleeping with your wife," and tells the other guy, "Hey, this guy's, I think he's hitting on your daughter." And you create this tension, this violence between them, to where there's nothing other than the fact of what they were told, and how you create friction between people. That's what Israel does for a living, is they create friction between people so that they're constantly at war with each other, when they should be at peace and realize that the real problem is the third neighbor, the one who's spreading the rumors.
Yeah.
And that's what Israel does.
Yeah.
So,
going back to the perception, just to wrap this up, I mean, it makes me somehow happy. It makes me happy that a lot of people around me, even, they never heard about, talk about them like so honestly and so transparently about Israel, about, the Jewish people, or the whole gaslighting, the manipulation, the who is actually the real perpetrator, criminal, or systemic genocidal perpetrator. So yeah, it somehow makes me happy that I think people are waking up. Maybe not maybe not the critical mass, but a lot of people are. I think the understanding needs to change in order to execute, the next step somehow.
No, let's hope it changes and changes quickly. But the world is in a very dangerous position right now. I don't want to see any nuclear wars used. And really, if Trump is successful in getting Israel to give up their nuclear weapons, we need to give up globally nuclear weapons. They serve no useful purpose. In the paper I'm going to send you, I talk about that, about the United States nuclear triad. That we have land-based missiles, we have submarine-based missiles, and we have aircraft-based missiles that deliver. Why do we want to have land-based missiles? They're expensive as heck to maintain, and it puts a target on the land, or where they're at. Why do we want these other countries' nuclear weapons targeting our territory? The United States. It's a stupid part of the triad. We don't want nuclear weapons going off on in the continental United States. We want to stop that. Give up that part of the triad. If you have to maintain nuclear weapons, keep them in submarines at sea, or keep them on airplanes, so that they're not sitting duck targets in a missile silo in the middle of South Dakota someplace. Give it up. But the world really needs to reject nuclear energy altogether, whether it's for civilian purposes or because it's dirty. It's the most expensive way to make steam in the world, and that's all it does, is you create steam with it.
Yeah, and we have the technologies to make everything obsolete. Would it be fossil oil?
we do, but they still want to keep us in this prison of having to buy energy, whether it's a nuclear based or fossil fuel. Forgive the term because it's not an accurate term. It's not
exactly.
Fossil.
Yeah,
but we need a different model for energy. But the City of London, which is Muammar Gaddafi had it right, and he said, if you want to stop all war and all terrorism, nuke the City of London. That is where all of this comes from.
Yeah.
The country of Israel would not exist if the City of London had not insisted on it.
Yeah.
That is where this came from. That is the point of origin for this. All evil in the world, all wars in the world, everything negative about the world starts there.
It's the root of the evil, right? The root of Satanism. Yeah.
That's where all this usury came from. That's everything comes out of the City of London. If the City of London ceased to exist, the world would become a very peaceful place very quickly.
Yeah.
So,
well,
Keyvan, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I know we've gone a little over time, but
hope to see you in person, hopefully.
And God forbid, peace to the people in Iran. I mean, Iranians are good people.
Yeah.
People don't understand it, and like I said, there's nothing I like more than Bat and June and Babli Pulao and Zib Zabzi and all the traditional Iranian foods. And people don't understand this. These are good people. People need to understand that Iran is a derivative of the word Aryan, and you and I, believe it or not, are distant cousins, and through bloodline. It's probably maybe 1,000 generations, who knows? But we're distant cousins. But I don't want to see any unnecessary deaths. I just don't want to see it. I don't want the world to go to war. I want peace. And so all I can tell everybody, your mind has a lot of power, and pray for peace. Pray internally. Pray. Use your own abilities internal to yourself. Don't look for some external God out there. Look into yourself and pray for peace.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And let us pray and wish for peace. Thank you so much. All right. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.